So today we're going to talk about a strategy for dealing with really difficult people well, it's a bit counterintuitive. Some people call it the silent revenge. And look, it's not about being passive or just letting things go. It's actually about taking back control in a way they will never see coming. Let's get into how doing a lot less can, believe it or not, achieve a whole lot more. Have you ever been there? Stuck in one of those arguments that just goes around and around in circles? It feels like you're on a hamster wheel, and at the end of it, you're just completely drained, totally misunderstood, no matter how many different ways you try to say the same thing. Oh, it is beyond frustrating. You lay out exactly how you feel, you think you're being perfectly clear, and then they just take your words, twist them into something you never meant, and throw them right back at you. And suddenly, you're right back at the beginning, defending yourself all over again. It feels like a game you just can't win. And you know what? That feeling is spot on. In a lot of ways, it is an unwinnable argument. There's actually a name for this feeling, and just understanding what it is, that's the first real step to finally breaking that cycle. It's called self-justification fatigue. And you know this feeling. It's when you have to defend your career choices to that same family member for the 100th time, or when you have to explain your boundaries over and over and over again. It's that deep, soul-crushing burnout you get from having to justify who you are to someone who seems absolutely committed to not getting it. That exhaustion is a huge red flag that something has to change. Okay, so when you're feeling that exhaustion and you just know that jumping back into the ring is a losing battle, what do you do? Well, this is where we bring in a strategy that might feel totally wrong at first, but is actually incredibly effective, and that is the power of silence. And this, right here, is the absolute heart of it. See, in a toxic argument, the other person isn't actually looking for a solution. They're not trying to understand you. A lot of the time, they're just arguing for the conflict itself. So by refusing to play, by saying nothing, you completely change the rules of the game. You redefine what winning even looks like. Now, I want to be really clear about this. This is not about surrendering. It is not about admitting you're wrong or that they're right. It's a strategic, active choice. You're making the decision to disengage from a pointless fight. You're not giving up. You are simply refusing to play a game that was rigged against you from the very start. So why is this so powerful? Why does it work? Well, it's not just some clever mind game. It's actually rooted in a pretty solid psychological principle. Let's actually dig into the science behind why this kind of detachment works so well. The idea is called behavioral extinction, and it's actually pretty simple. If a behavior doesn't get a reward, it eventually fades away. Now, in these arguments, what's the reward they're looking for? It's your emotional reaction, your frustration, your anger, your tears, you desperately trying to explain yourself. That's the reward. That is the jackpot. So think about the old cycle. It's like a slot machine. They pull the lever, they provoke you, and when you react emotionally, it pays out for them. The behavior gets rewarded. But the new cycle, that's you breaking the machine. By staying silent, by staying calm, you refuse to give them that emotional payout. You remove the reward. And when the machine stops paying out, they eventually stop pulling the lever because it just doesn't work for them anymore. And that brings us to the biggest shift of all. Because this whole strategy, it isn't really about changing them. It's about changing you. It's about how you protect and manage your own emotional well-being. We're so often taught that silence in an argument is weakness, that it means you have nothing left to say, that you've lost. We have to completely reframe that. In this context, silence is not a lack of defense. It's what you could call a detachment response. It's a powerful declaration of your own emotional freedom. And this is the ultimate goal. When you can sit there in the face of all that provocation and remain calm and quiet, you are sending the loudest possible message, not just to them, but more importantly, to yourself. And that message is, you do not get to control how I feel anymore. So where does that leave us? What does this mean for you in your life? Well, this isn't just some defensive trick. It's about taking back a huge part of yourself. Honestly, it's like discovering you have a new superpower. So let's just boil it all down. Your goal here isn't to win the argument anymore. Your new goal is to stop the exhausting cycle of constantly explaining yourself. Your strategy? To remove their reward by not giving them that emotional reaction they crave. And that is your power, reclaiming all of that mental and emotional energy for yourself. And the proof that it's working? It's not about watching them change. It's about feeling the change in you. You'll know it's working when you realize they no longer have the remote control to your feelings. And that really brings us to the final, most important question.
Once you stop pouring all of that precious energy into these battles that you can't win, you get it all back. All that time, all that focus, all that emotional bandwidth, it's yours again. So the real question isn't how to win an argument anymore. It's what are you going to do with all that energy you just took back? What will you build? What will you create? What will you finally have the peace to enjoy?